Of course, our rivers aren't as clean as they should be, but they are cleaner than they have been in the past.
Let me start with you with your housing plan that you're fronting and presenting today. You're talking about relaxing controls on pollution from new homes. You're calling it a benefit of Brexit because the rules were rooted in those days. I'm going to put to you a question that was put to us by one of our listeners. His name's Paul Miller, and this is what he said. He said during the Brexit campaign, Gove categorically stated standards would not be eroded after Brexit. In fact, says Paul, he specifically stated Brexit would enable the UK to raise environmental standards. Now it appears this honourable man is at the centre of renewed waterway pollution. Brutus, he says, eat your heart out. What do you say to Paul?
Well, I would say to Paul that what we've seen is a consistent improvement in environmental standards in every sense, from the changes that we've made to how we support agriculture, so that more money is being invested in the enhancement of the environment there, through to the specific steps that we're taking in the Levelling Up Bill, which place new responsibilities on water companies to deal with discharges. And today, we're spending £280 million additionally in order to ensure that we deal with the root cause of this problem. So far, in the last couple of years, we've had an impasse. We've had the clunky interpretation of a legacy EU law that has both stopped house building and hasn't really inspired the investment necessary in order to make sure that our rivers are cleaned up and that we deal with pollution. Today, we've got a win-win. We're unblocking housing development and unlocking investment for the environment.
Okay, look, there's no denying, Michael, is there, that building and occupying new homes causes pollution. It helps to pollute our waterways, our rivers and our waters. You say that any such effect is going to be mitigated. There'll be resources and there'll be rules to see that is at least levelled out. But I listen to people like the Wildlife Trust, and they say it's just guidance, and guidance counts for nothing and has counted for very little in the past. They just don't believe it. How on earth are you going to convince them?
Well, I hope that we can convince them by the scale of the investment that we're making. I've got a lot of time and respect for the Wildlife Trusts and the wonderful work that they do. And I can understand when questions such as the future of the Habitats Directive are discussed, they're naturally keen to make sure that this government is sticking to its commitment to enhance nature and to leave our environment in a better state than we found it. What I would say to them is, let's look at the practical effect of what we've had over the last couple of years, the failure to build new houses, but also the failure to secure the investment required, and look at the additional money that we're putting in today, as well as the changes that we're making in the Levelling Up Bill, which put water companies on notice that they need to have improved investment in wastewater treatment, which is at the heart of this, and also look at the additional cash that we're providing for farmers too. One of the big problems here is that some inefficient farming practices in the past have been responsible, one of the major causes for pollution in our rivers. I don't want to blame our farmers. It's not them that's at fault. It's been the way in which they haven't been supported to move away from some of the fertilizers and some of the products that have contributed to this pollution. And I think everyone who's looked at this issue would say, actually, new housing has only a minimal impact, because ultimately, without wanting to go into too much detail at tea time, the reason why there's pollution in our rivers is because of people, not because of bricks.
Yeah, well, we know what causes pollution. I mean, you say it would be a great prize to leave our waters in a better condition than you found them when you came in. The fact is, they're in a much worse condition. Our waterways and many of our coastal waters are absolutely filthy. Your party used to be a party that prided itself on care for our natural environment. Can you really sit there and tell me, Michael, you are completely content with the government's environmental record?
Well, I'm never content, and I always think that we should do better. But I do want.
But it's worse than it was, contrary to what you're saying.
No. I want to pick you up on that. It's a widespread myth that somehow that the quality of our water has deteriorated. Actually, we've seen record levels of investment. Between 2020 and 2025, the UK, England, will be spending more on improving its water than other European countries. And it's also the case that if you look at the real measures of pollution in our rivers, if you look, for example, at the ammonia, which is a sort of principal byproduct of some of the waste that we're talking about here, it's a sort of key indicator of sewage in our waters. The ammonia being detected has gone down. Now, the standards we expect of our rivers have gone up. Quite right. We're being more and more stringent in what we expect. And at the same time, we're also being more demanding of water companies as well. Now, some of them have been very poorly managed, and we need to be tougher in the way in which we regulate them. And that's why we're bringing in new laws in order to make sure that we meet even higher standards. So, of course, our rivers aren't as clean as they should be, but they are cleaner than they have been in the past. Ditto our beach.
Well, there's certainly room for improvement when it comes to the water companies who've had a dismal record in looking after our waterways, even while, and it's almost another matter, but it's connected, that even while their bosses have been paying themselves enormous bonuses. Now, as you know, Michael, on this programme here on Times Radio, we are interested in facts and rational argument, not point scoring, not spin and all that sort of thing. And Adam Vaughan, our environment editor at the Times, is here with me. You'll be delighted to hear. I'm going to get some of his expert thoughts at this moment. Welcome to you, Adam. You hear Michael Gove telling us there that our waters are better, not as popularly imagined, worse than they were in the tenure of this government. Is that true? And does Michael's promise that our waters will not suffer from this relaxation of the rules, is he right about that?
I suppose I'd like to hear Mr. Gove's views on how he can sort of square that with the fact that 16% of waterways in England are in good ecological status, and that's the same level it was 5 years ago. So I'm not sure. I'd be interested to know what improvement he's referring to. And I guess on the announcement today, I'd also be interested to know what his view is on how it's helping the environment by removing a legal protection, a requirement for house builders to do this before they can build, with a entirely voluntary sort of promise on compensation on more money that has no legal backstop, which his own officials admitted as much to me this morning. So I'd love to know how that's improving the environment.
Michael.
Two very good questions from Adam. The first thing is that the definition of what is good when it comes to a river has actually become tighter over time. So the EU, for entirely understandable reasons, and we as well, using the same sort of metrics, are now even more rigorous in measuring whether or not a river can meet good status, because we have tighter measurements of the types of pollutant that are there. So as you raise the bar, then the fact that the number that meet good status means that actually things have improved. The other thing that I would say is, as I was mentioning earlier, is that if you look at some of the specific, chemicals that show whether or not our rivers are polluted, if you look in particular at ammonia levels, those have been consistently declining. That shows that our rivers are in a better state. On the second point that Adam raises, you get rid of a legal backstop. That is a concern to environmental groups. I completely understand. But that legal backstop hadn't actually got the investment that we needed in our rivers or in improvement. If we want legal means of getting change, well, our levelling up bill is placing legal requirements on water companies to make sure that their wastewater treatment works are improved, that they cover more homes, that they cover more individuals as a result. And it is also the case that the £280 million that we're spending today, and also the protected site strategies that the Environment Secretary can now create under our Landmark Environment Act, are also tools and levers to ensure that we get practical improvement in our environment.
Okay.
Is it enough? Well, for me, it's not enough yet, but it's a step in the right direction.
Okay, trust me is what you're saying. Now, you mentioned the home builders. Trust the cash. Well, again, trust you. Let's see how it plays out. The Home Builders Federation, who you mentioned, they're not happy, are they? Especially, we are nowhere near the target of 300,000 new homes a year. I call it a target. It's been downgraded. It's now just an aspiration. And the Federation blames your MPs, Michael, for blocking developments and pushing for planning rules, which make home building harder. And you're not going to describe, are you, the Home Builders Federation and the construction companies as some kind of anti-Tory or Labour front?
No, I would never describe them as that. I think that they're a valued and trusted partner. But again, one of the things about housing and the environment and other considerations is that we always seek to strike a balance. So the House Builders Federation will always make an impassioned cry to make it easier for new development to occur. And I have a lot of sympathy with that position. But we also need to make sure that we continue to meet high environmental standards. We safeguard local democracy so that local people can decide the shape and nature of new developments. And we also want to make sure that new homes are built beautifully, that we're creating communities rather than just dormitories. And so, one of the reasons why some in the development sector have been critical of me is because I haven't rolled over and been a patsy. I've been a candid friend, keen to secure more development, but keen also to make sure that that development is beautiful, that it brings infrastructure alongside it, that there's democratic control, that there's an environmental enhancement, and that we're building new neighbourhoods, not just soulless estates.
Okay, now that our listeners heard your case there, they can make up their own minds about it, and I'm sure they will. While we have you with us, and again, thank you for joining us, the ULEZ, the emission charges on older cars, extends to outer London today. You have called it, quite recently, I'm quoting you now, unfair, cash grabbing, anti-Tory, anti-enterprise. I don't think you said that when Boris Johnson introduced this charge as Tory mayor, or did I miss it?
No, well, the key thing is there's a distinction between the sort of inner London zone, which has worked well, and the extension. At the moment, that extension, which Sadiq Khan is pushing through and which Keir Starmer is backing him in pushing through, is hitting people. Just at the moment, there's a cost of living challenge and without appropriate mitigation. On our rival channel on Radio 4 this morning, we heard from a care worker who would have to give a significant slice of her relatively small salary just in order to be able to continue to do her job. I fear, and it's not just me, there are a number of Labour MPs who are saying this as well, that Sadiq, who I've got a lot of time for, hasn't thought this through. And Keir Starmer has the power to rein him in, hasn't done so yet.
Are you opposing ULEZ in principle, or just at this time and in that place?
I think that he needs to look again. I'm always open to policies that will enhance the environment and improve public health. But one of the problems we have about the approach that the Mayor of London has taken is that he's seen it as a way, essentially, it's a cash cow for him, of getting more money for Transport for London from outer London boroughs. And he's making, I think, a political calculation, which is that these are the outer London boroughs that tend not to vote Labour. And so he will try and get the money from them. Since they're not his natural voters, then it's a political risk that he's prepared to take.
Okay, I know you need to go. I know you've got a very busy day. I just want to ask you finally about Nadine Dorries, one of your former close colleague, who called the Prime Minister in a resignation letter someone who simply doesn't care about the environment and is now working against the principles of conservatism. Does she have any point, or is she simply dead wrong and not to be relied upon?
Well, I'm very fond of Nadine, and I wish her well. And to be fair, I think everyone acknowledges that Nadine made a significant contribution when she was in the House of Commons as a health minister. She did a great job during COVID, and as Secretary of State at DCMS, she certainly shook that department up. I'm personally grateful to her for making sure that the Arts Council spent more of its cash outside London to support levelling up. But I'm just really sorry about the way in which she's stood down and the letter that she sent.
Yeah, it's going to cost you votes in by-elections, Michael, isn't it?
Well, the key thing now is everyone's got a chance to choose the next MP for Mid-Bedfordshire. And we have a brilliant candidate in Festus Akinbusoya. Festus is the police and crime commissioner there. He's the only candidate of any major party who actually lives in the constituency. More than that, he's the only candidate with a track record of fighting crime and delivering.
And you can bet we will be covering that by-election in proper depth. Michael Gove, really grateful for your company this afternoon. Adam Vaughan, our environment editor at the Times, last word with you. Your thoughts on what you heard there. And let me specifically ask you, while you're still here, when it comes to ULEZ, there's a flat contradiction of testimony. On one side, you've got Sadiq Khan saying this policy is going to mean less people with respiratory diseases in GP surgeries and hospitals. And on the other, you have government ministers, including Michael Gove, many others, saying it makes an insignificant difference. They can't both be right.
So on the river stuff, on the nutrient neutrality rules, I think the thing I would point out is the person we've not heard from today, which is someone called Tony Juniper, who's the chairman of Natural England, the regulator for all this. And he told me a few months ago that if these rules were scrapped, it would mean rivers overflowing with sewage, terrifying declines in wildlife, and means we wouldn't hit our water quality goals. I would just point out to you that we've not heard anything from Tony today. And I think that silence speaks volumes. On the ULEZ stuff, yes, the improvements in air quality that are expected from the outer London boroughs is not as big as what we've had from the extension to the South and North Circular and the inner bit. That's true. However, it will improve NOx and PM 2.5 levels. We do have 4,000 or so premature deaths a year. So it's not as big a gain, but it's a gain. And when it's people's health, I think it's a gain worth having.